You're going to enjoy this interview. I know you love listening to this man. I know you love hearing from this man, the one, the only, Larry Elder. Larry Elder, welcome to the Officer Tatum Show, formerly known as the Larry Elder Show. Did I get that
Colonel
right,
J,
Larry?
thank you for not calling me the black face of white supremacy. I'll take anything. Carl, thank you so much for having me. Carl,
Yeah, absolutely.
May I begin by an off-the-air discussion you and I were having? You were asking me about how this was going. You were telling me how good I look, and I must be doing well. And I was telling you about how
it's true.
I'm in a hotel in Iowa, and a New York Times reporter comes up to me, Carl, and says, "Why are you doing this? You're such a long shot. Are you doing this to get a syndicated column? Are you doing this to write a book? Are you doing this to get a radio show? Or getting this to do a TV deal?" I said, "Dude, you obviously don't know very much about me. I have all those things you just now mentioned. I am a best-selling author. I gave up my column twice to run for governor and then to run for president. I gave up my TV show, my radio show to do this. This is costing me a boatload of money, and I'm not flush. And Carl, once the money is gone, you don't get it back. Hopefully you get back some of your stuff, but you don't get back the money that you spent. Why am I doing this? Because my father was a World War II vet, as you know. He served in World War II in Guam. My older brother, Kirk, my late older brother, Kirk, he was my best friend, was in the Navy during the Vietnam era. He was in the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean. My little brother, Dennis, was in the Army. He actually went to Vietnam. I'm the only one in my family who didn't serve, Carl, and I've never felt good about that. This is my chance to give back to my country that's been so good to me and so good to my family. And I'm 71 years old. I know I look good. Black don't crack. The elder the berry, the sweeter the juice. But if not now, when? I can't do it 4 years from now or 8 years from now. I got to do it now. That's why I am doing this, to give back to my country. And to that end, I need to get up there in that debate stage in Milwaukee in August. Between now and then, I've got to get 40,000 individual donations. And the donation can be as small as $1. All you have to do is go to elderforpresident.com and throw something in the tip jar and get me up there. Even if you want somebody else or you think my odds are long, at the very least, Carl, I can get up there and I can talk about the lie that America is systemically racist. I can talk about the 10,000-pound elephant in the room, which is the epidemic of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids, as you know, enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. The devil's going on is the welfare state. We've incentivized women to marry the government. We've incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And finally, Carl, I've got to talk about the vital need for school choice in urban America. There are 53 government schools in Chicago where 0% of the kids, I kid you not, 0% of the kids can do math at grade level. They're all located in the inner city, and the Democratic Party is wedded at the hip with the teachers union. They're adamantly opposed to school choice. And yet they claim that they care a lot about black and brown people. Well, black and brown people in the inner city want school choice, and they're not getting it. If I can just put those issues front and center, I feel that I've given back to my party and to my country, and that's why I'm doing this.
You know, Larry, listen, I've been telling people that there's a few people, and I'm not going to name the names of others, but I will say this. There's a few people that I believe that are in this race for 2024. And I believe you're one of them. I believe Governor DeSantis is one of them. I think there's a time crunch for him as well. And obviously, Donald Trump is. I vacillate with Vivek Ramaswamy, but I like his ideas. I would say this, you four are the four that I'm looking most forward to, Lord willing, seeing on the debate stage. And this is the way I view it. Even if Larry Elder isn't necessarily your candidate, you heard of the issues that he spoke of. We'll get into some more issues as well. But I believe that iron sharpens iron. And I believe that if our candidate is going to win over Americans, moderates, independents, women, you name it, we've got to have the best ideas on the stage. And I know right now Trump is the front runner, but I think there's some better ideas that need to be offered. I think Larry Elder can offer that. Welcome back to the program. He is a presidential candidate running in the 2024 GOP primary. So, Larry, before we went to the break, and I totally screwed up. I was talking about practice at the beginning of the program, Larry, and then I screwed up. So
talking about practice, man.
Man, so I didn't practice enough. I shouldn't have thrown that back to you with just 10 seconds. But anyway, I did want to ask you about that because it's very important. And I'll be talking about more of this after our interview. But I believe the single most important question out there is how will you win the general election under the present voting system? Because we can talk about the economy, we can talk about Russia, Ukraine, we can talk about China trying to build a military base in Cuba, we can talk about all these things, but if we don't win, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. So talk to us about that, the actual election system, and what we need to do as Republicans to make sure we have a shot of winning, so that we can advance our agenda.
Well, a couple of things regarding 45. Carl, there are so many swing voters in swing states who would not vote for the man if he walked on water. In fact, if he did, they'd accuse him of not being able to swim. I have no idea what to do about Trump syndrome. Maybe someday somebody will develop a vaccine, but until then, it presents a problem, and that problem is called electability. And I think at some point during this long process, people are going to realize they got to coalesce behind a candidate whose last name is other than Trump, for whom a sufficient number of swing voters and swing states can vote so we can win in November 2024. Regarding your question about election integrity, as you know, I ran for governor out here in California, and one of the biggest mistakes I made, Carl, is during the 8 weeks I had left in the campaign. That's all we ran for, was in 8 weeks. The others ran for almost a whole year. To my knowledge, virtually none of the Republicans said anything at all about early balloting, let alone about ballot harvesting. Meanwhile, the Democrats were doing that for a very long period of time. What that does when you do early voting is it enables you to bank your likely voters and spend your money on what are called persuadables. We didn't do that because we expected our people to show up on election day, and they did. But had we gotten them earlier, we could have spent more money and more time trying to get swing voters to agree to our side. So it's a tactical mistake not to do that. And Ronna McDaniel, the chair of the RNC, realizes that, and she said we're now going to get into that game. So I'm hoping that will happen. In the meantime, though, people need to pressure their local lawmakers so that we get back to having same-day voting where you show up with show ID, paper ballot, this endless voting, mail-in voting. They don't have that in Europe. They ended it because the fraud, the ability to cheat and to commit fraud is way, way too high. So they don't have it. Just us. We have to knock it off and get back to same-day voting like we used to have when I grew up.
All right, let's talk about the economy, Larry. One of the things that Republicans get in, and the economy under Trump was absolutely amazing, but there was an issue. Republicans spend too much money. We try to fake the funk and act like we don't, but we spend too much money too. And so I want some of that spending curtailed. Do you have any ideas for that? What are your plans to curtail spending?
Don't insult me, Carl. Do I have any ideas about that? Of course I do. The last time we had a president who entered the Oval Office with a smaller government than who left the Oval Office with a smaller government than when he entered was Calvin Coolidge in the 20s. Even under Ronald Reagan, when he campaigned to reduce spending, to shut down the Department of Education, the Department of Education was there when he left, bigger than before, and government grew about 30%. It also grew under Donald Trump. It also grew under George W. Bush. It also grew under George Herbert Walker Bush. Government grows. In 1900, at all three levels, federal, state, and local, Carl, government took less than 9% from the American people. Now at all three levels, government takes about 32%. We need an amendment to the Constitution to fix spending to a certain percentage of the GDP. I would recommend 10%, with exceptions for war and for natural disaster. Now, we've amended the Constitution on average once every 10 years. So it can happen, but it requires the president to get up there on the bully pulpit and explain to the American people and use the word unsustainable. That's the word that Obama used to describe the so-called entitlements programs. It's the word that Bill Clinton used. And until and unless we rein in these programs, reform them, nothing's going to happen. But as soon as you run saying, I'm going to reform Social Security, I'm going to reform Medicare, you are going to lose at the ballot box because the other side is going to attack you and saying you don't care about the poor, you don't care about the sick. So the only way to do that is with a law that requires them to reduce spending to a certain percentage of the GDP. So they go into a room, they don't come out until they've done so, and then they can say to the voters, the devil made me do that, please don't hurt me, please reelect me. That's the only way this is going to happen.
Now you mentioned school choice, Larry, and I'm an advocate for I'm an advocate for school choice. We only have 2 minutes before the next break, and I want to see kids in urban cities do well and prevail. But I'm looking at I feel like we need more options because our institutions, our educational institutions, are going woke. So we need more options all around. What say you?
Absolutely. That's why we need school choice. You know, there was a study that looked at where teachers with school age kids, public school teachers with school age kids, sent their own kids. Nationwide, Carl, 10% of us have our kids in private school, 6% of Black families do. 49% of Philadelphia public school teachers with school age kids have their own kids in private schools. That's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, putting up a big sign saying, come on in, eat the food. We won't. So the people that know the school system the best aren't putting their own kids in it. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around, whether that's for homeschooling, religious schools, private schools, whatever. We need to have options so that we can have a better outcome. These kids are not learning how to read, write, and compute at grade level. 85% of Black 13-year-olds can neither read nor do math at grade level. Half can't even do basic reading, which means a large number of Black kids in America, Carl, are functionally illiterate. This is a travesty. It is a crisis, and something needs to be done about that.
All right, Larry, we only have probably about 40 seconds or so before this break. The administrative state, I'm very concerned about the growing threat of a rogue DOJ, FBI. What should be done?
We need to clean house. We also need to do something about the large number of workers that are protected by civil service, by these government unions. FDR did not believe there should be a federal government union. Jack Kennedy signed an executive order allowing it. That means an executive order can be signed to undo some of that. We need to clean house. Even Donald Trump realizes, even he did not understand the depths of the deep state.